A terrible crime and a step toward justice. 3 years ago, Dr. William Petit was asleep when intruders broke into his Connecticut home, beat him and bound him. Then the intruders turned viciously on Dr. Petit's wife and 2 daughters. Today, the doctor passed a milestone in his ordeal. One of the intruders was convicted of murder. Tonight, Dr. Petit talks about how the nightmare unfolded. Ashley Banfield reports.
On the steps of a Connecticut courthouse, Dr. William Petit emerges stoic but relieved.
We did our best to keep our faith in God that justice would be served.
A guilty verdict for Stephen Hayes. He's the first of 2 men to be tried for an unimaginable crime against Dr. Petit's family 3 years ago.
There is some relief, but my family is still gone. It doesn't bring them back. It doesn't bring back the home that we had.
Dr. Petit has come here day after excruciating day, reliving a nightmare.
If your family was destroyed by evil, I think that you would all try to do the same thing and be there for your family. I mean, it's the one thing you can do.
Dr. Petit endured wrenching testimony about the way his wife and daughters were tortured and murdered. It was July 23, 2007. 2 men broke into their home in Cheshire, Connecticut, beating him with a baseball bat. They tied him unconscious and bleeding to a pole in the basement. They then turned their attention to his wife and daughters. They tied 17-year-old Haley and 11-year-old Michaela to their beds. Meanwhile, Dr. Petit's wife, Jennifer, was forced to drive to the family bank and withdraw $15,000. A harrowing scene that was caught on surveillance video. The bank manager called 911.
We have a lady who is in our bank right now who says that her husband and children are being held at their house. The people are in a car outside the bank. She is getting $15,000 to bring out to them that if the police are told, they will kill the children and the husband.
Jennifer Hawke-Petit did as she was told, returning to her captor, Stephen Hayes, in the family's waiting vehicle outside the bank. En route home, Hayes stopped for gas, and yet again, surveillance video shows him buying canisters of fuel that would be used to burn the girls alive in an attempt to hide the evidence of the crimes.
In my 22 years of being a prosecutor, I can't imagine anything that was as horrendous as the facts that we uncovered and heard about during this trial. If there ever was a case that deserves the death penalty, this certainly is one.
The horror was far from over. Mrs. Hawke-Petit, unaware that her youngest daughter lay raped and tied to her bed upstairs, was herself raped by Hayes and then choked to death and doused in gas.
Right after the strangulation and rape of Jennifer Hawke-Petit, the perpetrators knew they had to cover their tracks, and so they burned that house down, and they did it by pouring gas on the 2 young girls that were bound to their beds upstairs and throughout the house and down the stairs and on the body of Jennifer Hawke-Petit.
But the girls upstairs were still alive.
The girls upstairs were still alive.
And they just struck the match?
And they struck the match.
As fire began to engulf the girls and the body of their mother, the 2 men ran from the home using the family's SUV as their getaway vehicle. But they didn't get far, slamming right into police cruisers that had formed a perimeter. They were cuffed on site, face down on the street. Many criticized police for not acting fast enough.
There will always be Monday morning quarterbacking to see if the police did their job. Did they rush in there quickly enough? And I really think that's unfair, because it's not like TV where everybody's suited up and ready to jump into that SWAT wagon and get out there and attack the house.
Dr. Petit was the only one to survive, freeing his hands and escaping through the basement. He crawled to a neighbor's house, his feet still bound. The neighbor called 911.
I got Bill Petit here who's hurt, my neighbor.
He's at your house?
Yes, he's right here.
Today's guilty verdict brings to a close just one of many painful chapters ahead. Now comes the penalty phase for Stephen Hayes, a mini-trial where his lawyers will try to save his life, while prosecutors will try to convince the jury to take it. Even death penalty opponents say the jury will have a lot to grapple with.
This trial really is about whether or not Hayes is just so beyond redemption that he should be eliminated from the human community, that he should be given the death penalty.
The death penalty is rare in Connecticut. The state has only executed one person since the penalty was reinstated in 1976.
Connecticut ranks right at the bottom in terms of number of people on death row by states. It has 10 people under death sentence. There are other states that have death rows in the hundreds.
And there is still the matter of the second defendant in the crime, Joshua Komisarjevsky. The 30-year-old petty criminal has a young daughter of his own and lived in the same town as the Pettits.
Well, I think the state has been greatly affected. I have never heard people in the general public talk about how they couldn't sleep at night when they heard the facts of the case on the news. It has caused people who want to follow our law enforcement system and our criminal justice system to think of issues that they never really want to think of.
For Dr. Petit and his extended family, they must still endure yet another trial for Joshua Komisarjevsky. But until then, Dr. Petit says he hopes for some healing time with the family.
We'll probably sit on the couch and talk and probably have dinner together and try to decide what we're going to do.
And pay tribute to his wife and daughters.
What matters to me most is my family and my memories of my family, and trying to do good things through our foundation. I don't know, over the last couple of weeks I've just kept trying to tell myself that good will overcome evil, and we'll keep trying to do good things and try to refocus myself on the positive and stay away from the negative.
This is Ashley Banfield for Nightline in New Haven, Connecticut.